Welcome to the first video tutorial for mxCalendar. I want to take this opportunity to really start cataloging and giving all the users a better understanding of some of the features and offerings of mxCalendar, especially with this latest release, version 0.1.3b, which expands and has the concept of custom field types tied to it, which is what I'm going to do this tutorial guide on, which is going to be a very high level at this point, and we'll have further videos and examples coming shortly. So obviously this is on the latest version as previously mentioned, and we've gone to the configuration tabs, and at the very bottom of this you'll notice the new custom field input options that we can enter. There's 5 columns that we really are concerned about. Even though we have the required column over here, we really are not using that at this time. It's definitely on the roadmap to extend the capabilities there, and kind of an identifier for me to not forget about it. So obviously the first thing that we see are the label and name input fields. So the label is built for the intention of providing user-friendly name of whatever that input value is, so you can kind of give it a friendly tag for the front end of the users to explain it again. Some items of note obviously is that the label and name generate placeholder values that can be used inside the chunks that get rendered through mxCalendar. And in this case we're prepending mxc to all the name input values. The name input value also drives the label name, but the label has an additional postfix of -label so that we can target it with the same style name property. So in the case of event, we have the placeholder mxc event and the label is mxc-label, so that we can target both of those placeholder values in our chunks. And also, instead of using chunks to override the theme of mxCalendar, you can obviously create a new theme or even customize a theme you're already using. Just quick reminder that if you're using the default theme, any future releases, obviously you would lose that custom field value. So the recommendation there would be either to use chunk overrides or create a new theme and make edits for your own needs outside of the default theme as provided. So we have next the type column, and the type column is pretty self-explanatory. This will derive what the input form is when you create an event. So the main unique one here that isn't really explanatory is the resource. In the case of resource, we're really targeting an existing page resource inside the site. So in this case it would be everything in your left hand area inside the manager. So any of these resources over here, we can start to target their content as well. And where we start to do that is through the options. The options are driving the template variables that we want to pull out and expose to mxCalendar to render obviously outside the resource. So again, we can create an event and we can pull in to that event template variables assigned to an external resource outside of that event. And in addition to the template variables that you identify, we're also pulling in by default some additional placeholder values for use in those chunks. In the terms of resources, we are pulling in the page title, the alias, the page description, and then the page content. The placeholder names remain constant as they would in any other chunk or HTML output. The only difference again is that we are prepending mxc in front of that. So for the case of the page title, we would have a placeholder value mxc page title, and I don't know if I mentioned or not, but we are also pulling in the alias. And the default value for the mxc event, since it is a resource, would actually be that resource ID. So in the case if we just use this 21 which I'll explain as well. That event title would be actually that resource ID, unique ID inside, which is often inside these parentheses. So in the default column for the resources, this drives our list or selection option inside the event manager when we go to create that event on what resources we can have access to. So this is really useful if you have venue per se that you're supporting and you want to be able to pull in content for that. You can create a parent resource in your page structure and then reference that parent item as a default value, so that in your event manager you're only going to see all the child elements in there and you're not going to get unnecessary resources that are not pertinent to the use inside mxCalendar. So it hopefully will help limit the confusion when entering events. So the second custom field we have here is event price. Pretty straightforward. We have the label event price. We are creating the name price, which drives our placeholder value mxc price. We're creating it as a standard text input type, and we are setting a default value of 15, which is meant to represent obviously dollars, in this case $15. So one other thing of note is when you're saving or adding custom fields is you can only enter one custom field at a time before you have to update in order to get the option to add in another custom field. Hopefully in a future release we'll get this updated to where we can add multiple custom fields in a single update process. But for the current release we have to do that one at a time, but it's pretty quick and painless. So if we were to create another custom field and we hit update, we would see the 3 fields that we had assigned, and then we'd have a new blank row under that we could continue to build on custom fields. There is no limit to the number of custom fields that you can create, so please expand the capabilities and really give it a try. So now that we've created our custom fields, we can now start to utilize them in our events. I've already created 2 events that use the custom fields that you just saw in the configuration manager. So if we go ahead and open the first one here, the very first thing that we're going to notice when the page load is the custom fields input is right at the top of each of these events when we go to enter them. Now back to the resource list, we had identified 21 as the default value. That default value again is limiting what child or page resources we have listed in our drop-down list. So again, that would be 21, and then we had to have these 2 child elements obviously populating our list as possible options. The event price in this sample event stayed the same with just 15 as the value. And for Johnny's we did the same thing. The only difference there obviously is we are targeting Johnny as the actual resource, and we did change the price value to 35. And pretty self-explanatory and common, but obviously since we do have new placeholder values, those are not built into the default theme, so you'll want to create a new theme and edit those chunks or templates, or we can use, like I did in this case, actually do theme overrides through chunks. So I've already created a chunk that I'm using to render the calendar view for the new custom fields. And again, if you remember, we had that template variable in that resource option and configuration and event logo image. So again, it was just prefixed with the mxc, and again that was our template variable. We have the price input value as entered inside the form of the event, and then the label as set up inside the configuration of mxCalendar. And if we view our calendar, we'll notice that we do have an image tied to Johnny's resource or event in this case. So again, inside of Johnny's we did not actually add any image through the custom fields, but we had actually tied that custom field value back to that resource of Johnny's in the page structure. And same thing with Willie's, but Willie's is not showing the image. So one of 2 things here: either it's broken or we did not actually add an image to the Willie's page resource. And in this case that was the intentional purpose of this, was to show that we can still use those custom fields and we won't have any breaking of the UI in this case. So if we go to Willie's and we take a look at the template variable, we'll notice that it is empty. So we'll go ahead and insert a quick image here just to make sure. We'll use Willie's logo, save it, and if we refresh our calendar, we should now see the Willie's logo. So we can confirm that yes, we are indeed pulling in the correct page resource and getting in that template variable as defined and created inside that chunk. So this really expands the capabilities that you can use for those chunks. Again, there's no limit to what we can do or what your opportunities are, and there will be further demonstrations coming along with the instructions. Thank you.